Welcome to Loot Drops, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our show about all things shared world shooter, looter shooters, splooter shooters, some would say.
Splooters.
Joining me today on this side is Arekkz.
What up? How's it going?
And then on that side is Dantics. I don't know my camera sides.
Hey guys. Somewhere over here.
Some big news this week. Destiny 2 had some nerfs. Division 2 had a incredibly difficult raid. And we'll talk a little bit about Borderlands 3 and Anthem, though there is less news this week about those topics. Let's start with Division 2. I think that's a pretty big topic that we should bring up right off the bat. Yeah. Arekkz, I know you're a Division guy. I'm a Division guy. Did you play the raid?
I did, yeah.
How far did you get?
Complete it. We did the first encounter, but then the boss. Yeah. It depends on what you count by. Like if the first boss is the first encounter, then we didn't even do that.
So you did the opening. You did the opening to get in the building.
Yeah. And then we got to the boss, and we got to so it went live at 5 p.m. our time, and then we were going to about 11 p.m. So what's that like maths? Sorry, that's 6 hours, something like that.
6 hours.
Yeah, so we were going for a good 6 hours, and most of that time, that the first encounter didn't take us too long. We wiped a couple times, and we got kind of spawn trapped. But then after that, we went through it. So we spent a good probably 5.5 hours on the first boss thing. And yeah, and we got to the point where it's one of those things where in raids like Destiny, if you're losing because you're learning mechanics, and you're like, oh, you know what, we're getting a little bit closer. You kind of you push through those 6 hours. So you're like, you know what? If we can just nail these mechanics, and we can get this rotation down, we're there. But we got to that realization point. It's we're not failing because of mechanics, because mechanically, the raid wasn't hugely complex.
You take out the shields. You make sure he can't get his heals. You DPS.
Exactly.
The basic mechanics, right?
Yeah. In fact, just for anyone that kind of in chat that maybe hasn't sort of played it, just sort of paint the broader picture. So you've got a big room, and there's 4 batteries in this room that if any enemy, be it the boss or just trash mobs, are in the vicinity of these batteries, they're immune, which is kind of frustrating, but you can take them down. There are 2 miniguns placed in the room, and you use the miniguns to shoot the batteries. Once you've taken them down the first time, you can then use computers in the middle to keep them down. And then when the boss comes out, he's got 2 main things. He's got a little chest plate, which is kind of small, and you have to shoot it to stop him from healing himself. You'll always know if he's about to heal because it will go orange first, and you kind of you can take him down. But if you ignore it, then he heals back up the health, which is part of the difficulty. And he's then got his backpack, which you have to shoot with the minigun to drop him to his knees, and then everyone can DPS him. So there's a lot of immunity phases, but that's kind of the general flow for the thing.
Believe it or not,
yeah.
I went in with my buddy Illegal, and I got to the same place. I actually was ready for the raid, and I got to try it out. I was really happy. But then I was like, oh, man, we kind of LFG'd it. I'm only 500. I don't have any, coveted gear or anything like that. I'm like, maybe it's a team build thing. Then I saw nobody had beaten it. Nobody. There were so few teams that have actually completed this raid that, Anyway, about the mechanics, please continue. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So no, but it's to that point. So we got to the point where we're not failing because of mechanics, because we got the rotation down. We got the rotation super clean to the point where, for us, with our under geared selves, we got him down to almost the last bar of his armor. Nice, so we were so close to doing it. And then we just we messed up at the last bit because obviously we got overrun by stuff, which we'll kind of get onto in a minute. And then we got about to the point where if we are going to get past this, we literally have to have a perfect run. We cannot drop anything. We have to interrupt his healing every single time. We have to make sure we're on top of everything. The only way we'll get through this with our builds is an exactly perfect run. And we're there's no point. We're just clearly not geared enough for this. We're all 500. We're all max there, but there's a difference between, obviously us being 500 and then having the builds that are, say,
the Patriot set or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, and afterwards, I had because Marco Style, so he was obviously one of the guys that, did well first. And I was sort of checking his VOD after, and you can see the difference. A trash mob, and this is where I kind of want to have the discussion point. A trash mob, which in any other activity in the division, you kill in a magazine. It was taking me 4 magazines to kill a trash mob.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm shoot,
or yellow?
Reload, shoot. Yellow and purple. But both those ones, between 3 and 4.
I think I was that's weird because I have gear that wasn't taking. Well, I was using an LMG. You're using AR, right? Assault rifle.
Primarily, yeah. I had a mix. I switched. I had LMG first, and I had assault rifle. Like some of them, like obviously, if you kind of because if you can get the head, if you get the headshots all the time, then it's a little bit quicker. But they sprint super fast. So basically, the point is, I invariably have to go through a couple of reloads. Before a trash mob is down. Whereas I look at the VOD for say Marco's team, and they were just killing them like their trash mobs, as you would expect. It was literally like one magazine, bam, they're dead. And therein lies the problem, because for us we weren't losing to mechanics. We weren't losing because the boss was inherently difficult. We were losing because a lot of the time there'll be tons of ads that come out, and you have to focus on the boss, because if you to a degree you have to focus on the boss, because if you don't keep on top of his chest, then he's healing and he's undoing all the work you've done. And then if you don't do that, there'll be like a trash mob in the corner with a sniper rifle that will just down you from anywhere.
Yeah.
And then we're just like, whew. So yeah, we kind of had to call it at that point.
Yeah.
I'll say this: it was fun hopping in, messing around with a bunch of randoms and a few friends. I like that. Something is off about the encounters. I think for that particular encounter, it's just one mechanic too many. Don't the fact that he can heal, give him more health overall, like make the DPS stuff take longer, but take away his health regen. Health regen is kind of crazy to put on a boss. And I didn't even get to see the other encounters. I know one involves a dog that makes you bleed, and another one that does something else. Because I saw Glad working on that. Even Glad didn't finish it on day one. I think he finished it the next day, maybe.
Not.
Maybe not.
I haven't seen the. I know. Well, the last time I heard it, there were the two teams, but then you mentioned since there's been one team on console that's now done it. So
36 hours. One team on console has done it.
Crazy.
We also didn't talk about the fact there's no matchmaking, right? They made this decision not to have matchmaking. Is that because the game is balanced to the harder difficulty side? Do you think? Like, what do you think? Based on what the data that we now have, we know like a few teams have beaten it on PC, probably fewer than 10, and one team has beaten it on console. So Dantics, you're pretty quiet because I know you're not a Division dude, but why do you think they went no matchmaking because of this difficulties?
Yeah, we talked about this like 3 episodes ago, that we want some kind of content that's tuned for the 1%, the people that just grind it out. And I believe they've kind of done that, haven't they? They've made it so you really do need to be a top end, because I don't think Arekkz is a casual by any stretch of the imagination. And he was saying that he was really struggling, even though he had the 500 gear score. Like, if you're at the max gear score, even a little bit of tuning shouldn't make that much of a difference, like 3 clips versus the 1 clip.
Yeah.
But what do you think made that big of a difference, Arekkz? Because, I believe that, to answer your question, Destin, yes, I think that they made that decision with matchmaking just because I feel like they've tuned it so highly that
honey.
So Arekkz, what do you think made that difference?
I think it's so.
She's splooting over there.
I don't think that I've always found that, like with Division, because Division's always been one of those games where, of all the looter shooters, it's the one that you can min max the most. Like, there's so many components in Division. You have gear pieces, you have weapons, you have weapon mods, you have gear mods, you then have like rolls on the gear, you have all the different things. There's always so many. So that's the thing. Like, even though you can have 2 people that fire on a gear score, but the amount of min-maxing you can do can be so drastically different that this person over here might as well be gear score 550 because of the amount of min-maxing they've been doing. And therein lies the problem, because I feel like the raid has been tuned for literally like raids. Like, here's the thing, right? I've never been someone that is afraid of difficulty. I'll put my effort into these playing difficult games. Play a ton of difficult games, and I'm used to raiding. And I've been in those like Destiny raids where we're sitting there for like 15 hours. But this raid of all of them, I feel like, has been tuned for like the 0.01% at the top, like the people that have the perfect. And here's the problem, right? Because like now, because it got to that point as well where we were like, there's not even any point of us like putting, for example, we would normally do like a guide on raids, and we're like, there's not even any point in us doing a guide on a raid. I mean, partly because we haven't completed it ourselves, but even if we did, we're like, the setup for this is the barrier to entry is so insane, because you need to find 8 people, right, that you can communicate with that are so finely min-maxed that you can then run this raid with. Like, that is insane.
One of the best shared world shooter players in the world. I don't even think he's beaten it yet. Glad. He's He's been like world's first in Destiny. He was world's first for Last Wish, one of the most complex raids to date, mechanics wise. and he hasn't beaten it yet.
We
haven't beaten it yet.
It sounds kind
And
of
we're
cool
at
that
max
it's this
gear
hard.
score.
It sounds
Like,
no,
to me-
it's not. But I think there is an aspect to it that makes it, because it's so difficult. People are gonna be like, I really need to get tuned for this. I really need to do it.
Yeah.
But I think, what are your thoughts on perhaps having this raid tuned down slightly, but then having a hard mode for those hardcore?
I feel like that needs to happen. Yeah, because to Destin's point before, is like, having the boss heal, that almost feels like a kind of heroic mechanic. It almost feels like if this was like a Destiny raid, that would be like what you would do in the harder version of the raid. Like, oh, okay, now we need to stay on top of it. But like, I feel if you break down the encounter, there's three core ways I feel like they could tune this, and they might have to address it, right? One of the things that Division raids, now I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure like one of the things that the Division raid and like other Division activities never seem to sort of have had in the past. So they don't seem to like Destiny's really good at, there'll be waves of stuff, right? It'll be like, okay, cool, you've done like the DPS rotation. At this point, ads will come out. There'll be a select number of ads that you deal with, and then you move on to the next phase, right? So you can kind of break things down into phases. In Division, a lot of the time, everything seems to just sort of rush out. So like, the boss comes out, and then like for example, if you're not on top of things, if you miss those screens in the middle, the batteries are coming up at the same time, ads are rushing in, the boss is moving around. So you're like, all right, I've got to watch his health. This guy's got to take down the batteries. This guy's got to deal with ads who are super, super strong. So right now if you're not a perfectly min-max team, like you need to be team shotting those ads. And I feel like a lot of the encounters aren't broken into those manageable chunks that you can then dissect.
So we can largely only talk about the first encounter because that's what we've gotten to experience on our separate teams. I think one of the aspects that wasn't developed fully is the boss's healing mechanic. Now, I said earlier, take it away, but the fact that it's not really telegraphed really well. He doesn't change color. He's also constantly running, so it's a hard thing to hit. If he's going to heal, he should do like this. Like telegraph it and actually give you a chance 100%. To take it out, because he's moving around and he's chasing a player who's marked basically, and you have to have him run towards the people with the guns, but of course he has to turn around eventually. So I think for the heal mechanic, if that were to remain in the encounter, it needs to be telegraphed better and actually give you he needs to stop freaking moving. This dude moves all the time except for DPS phase. DPS phase is actually done well. You bust his box on his back, and then he kind of goes down on one knee, and you're like, DPS phase, go. And you take it down. That I'm okay with. But the health regen mechanic is what makes this first encounter so difficult.
To that point, though, DPS, even that everything in this is so tight, because even the DPS phase, right? He is down for such a short period of time. Even in something like Destiny, like the DPS phase on something like Riven, right, is sizable enough that you can, for example, you could afford to be like, oh, I need to reload my gun and still get your DPS in. In this one, there were a couple of times when we were fighting where like I would have forgotten to reload my weapon. And obviously that's on me, but like I'll fire a couple of bullets, and by the time I finish reloading, he's back up. And I'm like, that DPS phase is so short, and there's also gates to it. Like we piled so much damage in, you could never do more than 2 blocks per phase. Yeah. So having gates, having a small window. To that point about telegraphing it, I almost feel like they should swap. If they want to keep the healing mechanic in, they should swap it so that if you want to interrupt his healing, you can shoot his backpack, and then to down him, you should shoot the chest. Because at least the backpack, when he's running across the room, like his chest is covered. So you like if he turns your back, like we were shouting across the room, we're like chest, because someone's got to have visibility. But with his bulky arms and stuff, a lot of the time you can't even shoot it. Whereas if it was like, oh, he's running, but you can shoot his hefty backpack and stopping healing, and then using the aggro mechanic, you can draw them towards shoot the chest with the minigun. I feel like that in itself might have even just made it a lot easier. But
2 crits, 2 crits would have went a long way, because it's just this really tiny thing on his chest that you have to shoot to stop the heal mechanic. And I'm not advocating for like a super easy encounter. I think the ads are good. I like the shield mechanic. That requires coordination. The fact that the turrets get disabled, but they only get disabled for a short period of time, right?
No. See that, and that's the other difficulty. That's where we
got further than I did, and you said they just get shut down. Yeah, go ahead.
So eventually, once you've done enough damage, I forget the exact number of rotations, but eventually, when you've done enough damage, he'll physically walk up and actually destroy a turret, so you can no longer use it. And then if he destroys both of them, you physically wipe the encounter because you can't down him. So. There's the temporary disable mechanic, which I think is basically the way it's designed is that you've got enough to use the turret to get him down to half health, and then you use the other one for the other half health. So it is very, very tight. Like overall, as you said, like we're not looking for a super easy raid. I'm definitely looking for a challenge, but I think if you want to keep something, like you either would need to remove or adjust the healing mechanic, or alternatively, just broaden the windows on things. If he was down for longer, if there was a more clearly defined ad window where it's like, okay, cool, you've killed the ads, they're gonna be quiet for a minute now, and now you can run over. Now you can do some damage to him. Now you've damaged him, and he's interrupted a turret. Now the ads come out. Okay, cool, let's kill the ads before we do the next phase. But it just felt like there was a non-stop onslaught of ads, and you can never really give them enough attention because you're trying to do this. So it just felt like it was a bit too much, and that's one of the things that last week when we spoke about it, we're like, what are the things that we're kind of hoping to see? I said the one thing I hope they don't do, which they often do in difficult division encounters, is they just pile things at you, and that's kind of what they did. It's like
So this was the first encounter of how many?
4. I think it's 4, right? Yeah, 4 or 5.
I think it's 4. Yeah, 3. Yeah.
And now, do you know anything about the final boss?
I know there's 2 robot dogs. I know that's an encounter.
The very, very final one is I didn't see all the mechanics specifically, but there's a load of different phases, and it looks pretty nuts because there's a big sort of satellite thing that comes out, and you have to do some damage to that. But then there's loads of things where you have to go and stand in circles to kind of fill up a meter for a minute, and then it looks like there's big heavy guys that run off to go and activate a rocket. You need to kill them before they fire it, which then if you don't, and bear in mind that's a heavy guy, so to try and kill that is difficult. But honestly, I didn't really get a chance to kind of dive into that. So there seems to be a lot of stuff going on in that final one.
It's all very, very mechanics heavy, almost too much. I don't want to pass judgment early because we can't power up to get stronger besides with our gear set loadouts, right? Like we could stat into armor or stat into DPS. You could maybe do both a little bit, like somewhere in the middle ground, but that is a very time-intensive thing, and I'm really surprised to hear you, Arekkz, because you're doing all these guides about how to get the guns and everything, so you're more versed in the Division 2 world than I am, and to hear that we got to the same spot and got blocked, that's
the thing,
really surprising for me to hear. I'm like, wow, so this guy who basically does this all the time got blocked at the same spot I did, a guy who played very casually and basically got carried to 506. By the way, they got rid of that, so you can't be 506. They normalized everything to 500. Glad did beat it. Thank you, 016 in chat.
Okay.
So he did beat it eventually, but I watched him that first day, and he was beaten. He was
I saw it.
I saw it.
Yeah, I saw a lot of teams tapping out. I mean, I saw like Gathali and Broman and Liz. They were they were going for a while, and then they tapped out. I saw M-Tashed and Butter and people like that. And everyone that they were typically that we've known from Destiny days that would just power through until they get it done. A lot of people just tapped out because they all just realized. Because I think looking at the builds that a lot of the guys did, I think a lot of them spec'd pretty glass cannon. I think they were just everything in damage because it's kind of what you need. But it's almost, even though this is obviously a raid and the previous ones weren't, this is actually kind of reminiscent of Clear Sky, which was the second incursion, which was one of the ones that people liked the least, because I remember that one had a phase in the final boss we got to, and we just on the hardest difficulty we still couldn't do it, even though we had pretty min-max builds. So it's because there was a phase where you had to carry a box, and when you're carrying a box you can't do anything, and then suddenly you're getting rained by rockets from a turret thing, and you're getting hit by tons of ads, and it was literally just everything at you, and unless you can kill something like that, you're dead.
So from an outsider looking in, it seems like Destin was saying there's just too many mechanics. So you have the turrets, you have the backpack, you have the chest plate that you need to shoot to stop the healing.
The turrets that shield the ads. You have ads, and yellow and red and purple constantly coming in.
The ads, yep. So in a good World of Warcraft raid, I know I go back to this, but it's normally just one mechanic that you need to watch out, like a living bomb, for example.
Yeah.
Like in Molten Core, just the main mechanic was, hey, once every so often, one of your teammates gets turned into a bomb and he needs to run away and not blow up the team. That's the mechanic,
That reminds me of Golgoroth in Destiny.
Yeah.
They did the same thing,
Yeah. Well, things like that are really good.
I get what you're saying, Dantics, and that's a good point. So the problem is it's just too many mechanics all kind of on top of each other. I think that's the main thing. And just don't let him disable turrets, or don't let him disable one turret. Disabling both is just kind of really?
Yeah. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Is that just a game over at that point? You can't do anything once
you're done.
The full-on white mechanic. It'll actually say on screen, encounter failed or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Which is weird. It's just it's over. Good job, you guys. So So I think there's a few problems with this. In addition to just the raid mechanics, I think they waited way too long to launch this thing. Hype for Division was kind of lower. You know, some people were gearing. A lot of my friends, like the kind of funny guys, you know, me at IGN, we're all just kind of like, hey, is anybody 500? No. So we had to PCLFG it. And I don't think not a lot of people even had a raid group for this thing. So that's a problem. And I'm not saying matchmaking is the answer, though. I am a big advocate for matchmaking because I have seen it work well in other games, but not necessarily in PC games yet because everybody just uses Destiny as the reference point. But there have been cases where matchmaking does work well. So they are going to add that a little bit later. They confirm that, just not right away at the beginning. So how do you guys feel about the timing of this? Because this is a month and a half out from like World Tier 5, right?
Yeah,
Arekkz?
yeah.
It's been a month and a half since the last cool thing happened in Division 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those ones where they had lost some momentum, and it's one of those really weird things. I was sort of like chatting to people the other day about it because like Division, you know, I remember we spoke about it when it first launched. As of all the looter shooters, it probably had the most competent launch in that everything was so. I used the word the other day that I think almost perfectly describes it. Like Division's launch was clinical, right? It's just it did everything it needs to. It ticked all the boxes, it had all the content, it had a lot of different things like that. But at the same time, it didn't have that excitement. Hence the kind of clinical thing, right? It was just really good.
Yeah. It also
but then
failed
obviously
to meet. It failed to meet sales expectations according to Ubisoft, also, which was kind of a surprise because it's a critical success. So
yeah, I think it's a difficulty because you have. It's very easy. Well, I don't want to say it's very easy because obviously nothing in game development is easy. But it's very easy when you have a sci-fi setting just to kind of completely make everything look different. It's like, oh, suddenly now we're in a volcano and we're fighting against rhinoceroses with guns, or making that up. That sounds kind of cool though. But then whereas but then in Division 2, it's like, well, okay, cool. We're in Washington, but it's fundamentally still looks very similar to the previous game. So it's kind of hard for people to get traction because Division 1, everyone was so hyped out when it was launched because they were like, we've never seen something like this, right? Whereas now it was definitely, I know from them, it was quite hard for them to get that momentum at launch. But then obviously following on from that, as you say, off the back of World Tier 5 would have been a perfect time to launch it because then people were like, okay, cool, we're going to jump back in. But the problem was when World Tier 5 launched, there wasn't a great deal to do. You go back in, you got this kind of actually quite annoying weekly rotation where the stronghold you can do gets locked again, so you have to go and do some mandatory missions again to unlock it. And then, but if you did that knowing that, okay, cool, next week we were raiding, people would still be there. But we had a month of World Tier 5 where it's like, well, and maybe that's partly why I wasn't raid ready because, although I was still playing, I wasn't playing it as actively as I was before because I was like, well, there's really not much to do on a weekly basis. So then to try and come back for that activity and then have a lot of people, unfortunately, get hit with the, oh, by the way, you can't matchmake. They definitely had a lot of problems they had to kind of face up to. So it's not been, and it's unfortunate as well because I do want to, although the raid is difficult, I do want to kind of commend them because I remember like speaking to the developers before about raids and about how in the past the closest thing they had to them being incursions just didn't really have mechanics. They just threw stuff at you. So it's nice for them to see they actually have introduced mechanics, albeit a little bit too tough now. But unfortunately, people just like half people aren't even going to get to experience this. So that's the problem. Like, they've got this great content, but no one can play it.
Yeah. Now raid teams are able to beat it in 20 minutes. But like there's a video out there of one of the teams that like got together and did it in 23 minutes. That said,
the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing. Well, I think the whole thing. Somebody linked to it in chat.
How is that possible? That sounds like one boss.
I don't know.
That's
anyway.
mad.
Yeah, like even the time to DPS the main boss, they must have like god tier builds or something like that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jimbo, for sending that over.
So to speak to Arekkz's previous point, in terms of rhinoceroses with guns and stuff, I feel like what holds Division back for me personally is the Tom Clancy franchise. I know that's a bit controversial, but you have to meet certain. You've got certain boundaries with that franchise. You can't do certain things. Like you can't have people riding on elephants shooting guns. So I feel like the creativity is a little stifled. So when I went from Division 1 to Division 2, I just didn't feel too much of a jump in terms of what was holding me there and what was pushing me forward. There wasn't too much to see. It was very similar enemies, very similar bosses. Even listening to you guys about the raid, it just seems like you're fighting another guy, right? Just with a cool power pack on.
I'm watching the video right. Sorry, Dantics. I'm watching the video.
Yeah,
go. It is the full run, 20 minutes, just to confirm.
Damn.
Wow.
Yeah. But they're like, they're running up to people and like, bloop, dead. Like one-shotting everything.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. Sorry.
How much disparity is there at like the top end and then at the top end, but not quite the top end? It's like...
There's I mean, as I said before, like in Division, like the amount of maxing you can do is literally like it might as well be the difference between gear score 500 and 600 because that's how much difference you
it
can
seems
get
like
out of it.
difference between 0 and 500. Like, how do you go triple damage or 4 times damage? That's
but it's all in numbers, right? It's all number crunching, and for your average player who's just kind of running around getting a gear set or everything, they're not going to dive into the nitty gritty the way that like we necessarily would. But like these guys who are like crushing the boss, they're probably going to do that. I might do that because I'm really into that stuff, but I don't think that's the norm.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah. Anyway, we've been talking about Division a long time. Arekkz, you get the last point. Go for it.
No, I was literally just going to say, and that kind of goes back to why Destiny raids are so good, because although they do have that power curve, and there have often been parts we hit there and we can't go beyond. A lot of the time, teams fail mechanically, right? And like I don't mind failing, like I don't mind mechanical failure. I just hate this is just so damn tough. You can't even kill this trash mob. Like that's the difficulty. But yeah, that's just kind of it.
For sure. Let's move on. Let's talk about Borderlands 3 and Anthem really quick, two of the other main share world shooters. So Dantics can actually say something. I'm sorry, dude. I saw you sitting there like with the "Hello, darkness, my old friend." Maybe I'm like, someone's gonna meme him.
Honestly, someone meme me, please. No, honestly, I just liked hearing about it. To be honest, it is very interesting what Arekkz was saying, and I kind of like seeing that they've gone this direction. Honestly, I think it is the first looter shooter that's really done this. That's kind of like separated the audience by this extent. So it's just a good social experiment. But talking about Borderlands 3, that is the game. That is the looter shooter I'm really, really excited for. And they will be at E3, and they do have a sizable booth. So I'm expecting us to be able to jump in and play, and I'm really hoping for us to be able to play Mose and Flak. Flak being my boy.
Yes. Flak is the one.
Please.
I think I might go Mose. I really like that big old mech.
You do. So my suspicions, I agree. My suspicions with Mose is, and I think a lot of people in the community are saying the same thing, is she will have the one skill. She will have the summon bear mech. However, you'll be able to heavily customize it based on all the videos we've seen. We've seen 2 bear claws, where she jumps in and like can hit with melee. We've seen twin miniguns, well, quad miniguns, because you get 2 miniguns on each stack of arms. And then we've seen a combination of miniguns, rocket launchers, and then we've seen twin kind of nuke cannons as well. So that's just what we've seen, but it seems like you can really swap those arms in and out.
I'm calling it now. I'm calling it now. She's going to be the broken character that they're going to have to patch. Yeah.
Okay.
Just because she's customizable. Anytime that happens, people figure out how to stat into it and just ruin them.
Yeah. I feel like you're right, actually, because I was watching that the latest trailer that they had, the marketing trailer where she does launch the nukes. It is this massive AoE explosion, and everything around it kind of just wipes. You see it within those frames, and it does seem like it's going to be a little imbalanced if it's going to be better than the guns that you can actually equip, which it will be.
That said, Gearbox is usually fine with just broken stuff. Did they ever really patch Borderlands 2 at any point besides like the infinite money glitch and stuff like that? Like, I don't think they really care about being able to nuke enemies, right?
No, they mostly added more legendaries and stuff. Yeah, they mostly added more legendaries and more items. They didn't really
your point. Like, it's one of those games where you can definitely just have that like that crazy over the top feeling, right?
More, just give me more. That's how you patch it.
Anyway, go ahead.
It's funny.
Sorry, go on. I was trying to be polite. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying because it's funny because like actually to that point, it'd be a good kind of thing to discuss. I was chatting to a friend about this like a while ago, but completely off the topic of this. But when Risk of Rain 2 came out, and we were kind of playing with it, and the amount of stuff you can stack to the point that your character is broken, but we had so much fun. And I was chatting to my friend. I was like, you know what? This is the thing that a lot of games don't do because they're so worried about balance. They balance things so much that they become sterile. But I'm like, if there's a game where, and I completely get that if it's competitive, But if there is a game where you're just playing co-op and you're not going to interfere with other people's games, I'm like, I actually like it when you can go broken. Like, I mean, obviously, if you're taking something like ridiculously difficult and it's supposed to be a challenge and you make it easy, okay, I understand that. But sometimes having things where you genuinely feel like you want to feel powerful, right? People, if you get to the end of the game and you've got the best gun and you're still shooting someone for 10 minutes, like that doesn't really feel great. But when you can go in and like you can risk of rain it and
don't let Bungie hear you. Don't let Bungie hear you.
Oh yeah,
they'll come in and nerf Risk It Rain too. We'll talk about that in a second.
So for those who don't know, Risk of Rain is a roguelike game wherein you can play with 4 other players and you try to just go as long as you can, survive as long as you can. The most of the time you get to a point where it gets so hard that you just get wiped. It just gets harder and harder as it goes along. But you can stack items to a ridiculous point where they combo together and you become overpowered. Like I found this shrine that turned all of my items that I had collected into 1 or 2. And I ended up having like 40 teddy bears, and a teddy bear will randomly block damage completely. And I think about 40 meant that 99.9% of the time I was completely blocking damage. so it's just not dying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's things like that.
I just loved how much you could stack things. I had like a friend in that one that gathered like all the feathers, let you double jump. I was like, wait, if you have 3 of them, what happens? And then he just got like loads of, he could literally just jump all the time. And I saw like a stream where like Admiral Baru was like playing, and he literally broke the game because he survived that long, that he had so many things. And that was, that's that point. I mean, yeah, like if it goes in something like Borderlands and you can have like a mech and you can drop it down, you just feel like a god. Like I'm just like, you know what? I'm completely cool with that because it's not competitive. Like my experience is completely separate to yours, and what I do is not going to affect you. So let me have some dumb stuff because it's going to be hella fun. And it's the game for it, right? Yeah,
exactly. The only thing I'd say is don't make it too easy to have like broken dumb fun. Make it so like you do need to work, you need to go on YouTube or something and find a guide to break it. But make it so like a normal person playing through is just not gonna, like I remember in Dragon Age Inquisition, there was a build with the rogue, I think you go down the alchemist path, where you could pretty much unlimited just continually cast your ultimate spell, which made you immune, which burnt down anything. And I figured that out without reading any guides or doing anything. And it made it so the game was just broken for me. Like I just could get through any content. So I wouldn't want to see that. But so there's also Flak. Now Flak has been revealed to be non-binary. Robot is actually a robot. So some people are speculating that it would be Loaderbot from the end of Tales from the Borderlands.
Oh my god, that would be so good.
But my theory is it isn't, because it's got like 3 fingers instead of the 4. Loaderbot had 4, and its toes are different. And I don't know. I don't feel like it's Loaderbot. Also speculating that each pet will be on a different skill tree. There's 3 skill trees. There's 3 pets. That has been confirmed. We have seen other skills for Flak as well, so my assumption is once your pet is out, if you cast the skill again, you will do something else, something cool, like going stealth, which we've seen in one of the marketing videos. Also, I saw something, and I contacted 2K, and I contacted Gearbox, and they couldn't find it, but there was this marketing video on Instagram where he points to the right, and a rack flies out. So I feel like they can summon racks as well. You saw that? So I wasn't going crazy. They're like, what are you talking about? That video doesn't exist.
There's literally like 3 frames at the very end of it where if you pause it, like you see a little like glow in front of his hand and then the rack comes out after.
Yes, thank you. Can we talk to 2K together, please?
Maybe that'll be his grenade. Maybe like instead of grenades, he just goes whoosh.
Yeah. Maybe that would be cool, because Zane can actually because if you have 2 skills equipped, he won't use grenades. But there's other ways for him to use it, like it drops out of his drone, or so maybe they play around with grenades a little bit like that, which would be cool.
That'd be cool. And it also looks like from looking at the Flak stuff as well that you can upgrade the pet, because we've seen the Skag in 2 different configurations. In the gameplay. And I'm still hoping that you can somewhat interact with them. One of my questions in my interview was like, because I you know the Twitter account, can you pet the dog?
Oh yeah.
I said in my interview, I was like, so can you pet the Skag? And they were like, I'm not sure I'm allowed to say that right now. I was like, can you interact with him? And they were like, there's stuff you can do. I'm like, okay. So I'm hoping, because you saw that part of the trailer where there's jumping, there's little hearts around it. It's like, you got to be able to pet your pet, right? But,
I hope so. It's not going to be like the level of like Fable 2 where the dog runs around with you and you can pet it and like teach it things. But there's going to be some level of interactivity. There's no point going a pet class and not being able to pat it.
Imagine if you could throw a TDO weapon and it grabs it and then it runs into the enemies. Okay,
and then
I'm
burning itself because
running.
it explodes.
Yeah. Oh no way.
Yeah.
The other game we're expecting at E3 is Anthem. So nothing's been happening.
Probably not E3. Probably EA Play, right?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, I just call it
Yeah.
E3 because it's like the E3 week. But
Yeah.
yeah,
me too.
Yeah.
So nothing's going on, man. They haven't really said anything. They've kind of gone media silent.
I've been scouring the internet for things, and I just man, there's one post I want to talk about in a bit, but there hasn't been a live stream for weeks. Right? There hasn't been. And that's probably because there's just nothing to talk about. Like, what could they talk about except just accepting criticism at this point?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's healthy for anyone just to sit there and listen to people criticizing them.
Yeah. I just don't play it. Like, there's nothing to do. Cool. I'll come back when there's something to do. That's how I go for it. I do feel bad. A lot of people felt like I had misled them because I liked Anthem for the 100 hours or so that I played it. So if you did feel misled, I do apologize for that. But, I'm just coming from a place of honesty. I had a good time for the 100 hours.
Yeah.
In the end game, I didn't have a good time. And that's the long and short of it. Like, I'm just very middle of the road with this game. There's nothing to do now, so I'm not playing it. And, just don't play it if you don't want to. That's all I really have to say. Yeah.
For me, I got a good, 100 hours as well. And for me, if I spend even $100 on a game and I get 100 hours, that's a dollar an hour, and I'm pretty okay with that, honestly. I mean, I got Rage 2 just before, and I've played about 15, 20 hours of that, and that was just, I don't think I'd play much more than that. And I had a lot of fun, and it was worth every dollar I spent. So
So for me, with Anthem, it just is what it is. Now, talking about E3, Dantics, what would you want to see at E3, if anything, for Anthem?
Like I said to you, even if I don't see anything this year, I'd be okay with it as long as they release something massive for the next year or even 6 months down the track. Yeah. If we got just what we were promised with the roadmap, I'd be very happy. But I don't think it's going to be enough. I think it's too little too late at this point for me. I feel like there needs to be something fairly substantial, fairly meaty to bring me back and keep me back. If it's just another Stronghold, it's not enough. If it's just a little bit of a change here and there, or a little bit more content out in the open world, not enough. Yeah. So I really want them to buckle down for a year and relaunch it like No Man's Sky.
I'll take it a step further. I will say I don't want to see them at E3 at all. I don't think they should be there. I think they've made this decision to go radio silent and put their heads down. That's what the No Man's Sky team did, and I think they should continue that for the next year and potentially be at E3 next year. That's just my take. I think there are so many issues with Anthem that they need to work on, especially for the end game and going forward, that they should just do that and do like these updates periodically that improve the product. That's what No Man's Sky did. So while everybody was shitting all over No Man's Sky, they were actually releasing these content updates that actually improved the product, and then they relaunched later with a large patch that most people said was good, and that's what I want to see from Anthem. What about you, Arekkz? What would you like? Sorry, Dantics, go ahead.
They completely flipped it on their head. Yep. Completely. Sorry, Arekkz, what do you think?
No, I mean, so so contrary to that, I do feel like they should have not necessarily a presence per se. I agree that at the moment, I think whatever it is they need to do to the game, I definitely think from a development point of view is going to take a while, and I don't think like anything they do in the short term is the unfortunate reality. I know the team are working super hard regardless, and obviously going to try and do their best, but anything they do in the short term is unfortunately not going to be enough, right? Because if they drop something they could have feasibly done in like a month or two, players will complete it in a day or two, and they're back in the same place. So, but I do feel like they should be at E3 in some capacity to the point where I think what they should be doing, they should acknowledge where they're at. And I know they've done this on Twitter, but I feel like at E3, it could almost come in like a vidoc format where in a kind of Destiny style thing where they sit down and how like last year at E3 or EA Play, the very first thing they did with Star Wars Battlefront stuff, they came up on stage and they were like, right, we made some mistakes, we've done something wrong, this is what we're doing to fix it. And obviously I know they don't have a press conference this year, but I feel like if they had a vidoc this year and they were like, right, this is the state of Anthem, we've heard you, we know there are things wrong, this is what we're planning to do to fix it. It doesn't mean to say they have to have things say, doesn't mean to say they have to give us a date, but they could be like, right, these are the things we've identified that are going to be fixed. This is what we're doing to fix it. This is how a game is going to be changing. And if that involves like, here's what cataclysms are going to have to offer. Here's how we're going to rework progression to give you more things to earn, more things to do. Here's how we're going to change the game so that you have regular things still on a weekly cadence. I feel like
I would be absolutely okay with that, Arekkz. If they were just like, hey, look, we know where Anthem's at. We're glad that we have this player base of passionate fans. Here's what we're going to do. Don't expect these updates anytime soon, but we're going to go to work now for you guys. We believe in this product. We're going to continue working on it. Here's what our plans are. We're going to fix loot. We're going to have a stat screen. We're going to add a huge story expansion. We're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And we're not going to market it to you anymore. We're going to show you that we
don't
care.
give us a timeline. Just do it.
Yeah.
We're going to get it done. We're going to get it done right, and we're going to launch it at that point. Thank you for the support you've shown. We'll see you when it's done and when it's done right.
I
would like that a lot.
So that kind of leads into a post on Reddit from user KangaXX Khan. Now, I thought this was pretty good. He says, next week will mark exactly 3 months since Anthem's launch, plus 1 week for the early access launch. In that time, content-wise, we've gotten 0 new javelins, 0 new gear pieces, a handful of passive components, and only 1 new stronghold. Now, Mass Effect 3 was not touted as a live service and not a constantly evolving game. Yet by 3 months out, we received 12 new multiplayer kits with new powers. Now, keep in mind, these are basically like new classes, those kits. They were amazing. 4 new maps, 6 new guns, 18 new passive pieces of gear, and in about 2 or 3 weeks, DLC that completely reworks the endings in responses to fan demands. And all of that was free. So if any of you played Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, it was actually really enjoyable. Me and 3 other friends. Yeah. We'd constantly have to rotate between each other because so many people wanted to play it with us. So it was, I think there was about 10 of us that just had to keep jumping in and making different games because it was such a fun experience. It was short little stints. You got a lot of progression. You leveled up really fast. You got a lot of gear. And you just want to try new things. And with those new multiplayer kits, with that drastically change the different classes you could be. You could be like a Geth, what are they called? The massive Geths.
Yeah, you could be what were they?
Tanks.
I would just call them tanks. I can't remember, dude.
You can't get behind cover. yeah. So am I, actually. Like, I've played through it so many, I can't remember the names. You can't get behind cover with that guy.
Juggernaut.
Yeah, I think it was a Juggernaut.
Yeah,
anyway, you can't get behind cover. He had his rockets and stuff like that. And it was just completely overpowered. But then you realize in the higher difficulty, not getting behind cover is pretty bad. and there's little things like that. So the Mass Effect 3 actually really did do a great job and add to the fact that there was so much actual content at release for that game. And this was just all a bonus. So KangaXX Khan kind of brought up a really good point. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think it was a different development strategy. I would argue that Mass Effect 3 was kind of where they started to get weird with the kind of content that they were creating. I'm glad they addressed the fan feedback. I don't like how it ended. I remember a script leaked early for Mass Effect 3, and then I believe the ending was slightly changed. And I always wonder what that original ending would have been without the adjustments. I don't like a lot of the DLC, like the Citadel DLC, I believe, was the one where they got goofy and they had like a Shepard clone and everything. They just leaned into like this weird humor, and that was about the same time that they had the ending adjustment. But some people absolutely love that. In my opinion, the Leviathan DLC expanding on the lore of Mass Effect 3 is probably my favorite piece of content because we finally got to see the oh my god, what were the main enemies called? Not the Geth,
The Reapers.
Leviathans? The Reapers, yes, the Reapers. So we actually got to see the Leviathans, which were these big deity-like creatures.
Yep, what they were modeled after, basically.
Yeah, what they were modeled after, and that was really, really intriguing to me. But at the same time, there was a lot of weird stuff that happened with Mass Effect 3. So they had a different content release strategy for that game. It's also not a multiplayer game besides the 4-player cooperative stuff. I think that's when they started establishing how to do multiplayer gameplay. And yeah, it is interesting to think. I'm just kind of thinking out loud as I talk right now, you guys. So I apologize for being rambly, but the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer is probably the best multiplayer they've done. I would argue that Mass Effect Andromeda, for all its flaws, its multiplayer was just an extension of what Mass Effect 3 was, and it was a lot of fun because it added a lot of those same things. And I think there's something to be said for games as a service, but I think abandoning the old models of regular content drops isn't necessarily the right thing to do. Destiny went annual pass. We don't have a lot of like House of Wolves style expansions anymore, and I don't necessarily like that. I think we got higher quality stuff in the past because there was an expectation, and now the expectation is, okay, am I going to get 4 forges copy and pasted to 4 different planets? That's being reductive, I know, but that's sort of how it ends up feeling at the end. I'm sorry. That was my rant, my mini ramble. Arekkz, what do you think about the comparison between Mass Effect 3, as Dantics asked, to where we are today with Anthem?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge Mass Effect person, so I don't really have like contextual knowledge for that. But I mean, I think in terms of it's drawing parallels between different game developments is often quite difficult anyway. I mean, there are parallels between the games, but at the same time, I think the difficulty with Anthem is that from the article beforehand is that they've constantly had problems with their engine, right? So I feel like if they were in a comfortable position development wise, then it would be easier to sort of say, oh, hey, here's where we kind of expect them to be along that way. But I feel like with all the setbacks they've had, they're just trying to fight through walls all the time. So it's kind of hard to say really. I really hope they get the support they need. I mean, again, because that the article from that before, I genuinely hope that they have the support they need for the engine, because if they've been forced to use this, then it's not fair that that's a bottleneck for all the stuff they want to do. Like if that was not a bottleneck, and then it was just let's make cool stuff, maybe it would be easier. But if it's always like, how can we actually do this cool stuff we want to do, then hard to say. So,
that's all I want to say on it. Arekkz, Dantics, do you have any final thoughts?
Look, it definitely is a different game, and there's obviously different problems that they need to address, like Arekkz was saying. But at the end of the day, I think there's a bit of a lesson to be learnt there. I think what BioWare does well is not this kind of live service model. I really don't think... I think they can nail a game that is live service. I think they really can. So either they push forward and go hard in on that, and maybe don't use the Frostbite engine, or they go back to their grassroots and they say, look, what we do is these great single player narrative driven experiences, and then we can separate our multiplayer into something else for our little side hustle, which makes them a lot of money apparently. I feel like that's what they do really well, and I enjoyed both aspects of Mass Effect 3, Dragon Age Inquisition, and Mass Effect Andromeda. All three of those multiplayers, the co-op experience, the 4-player co-op experience, were really good. And I feel like Anthem was an extension of that. They thought, hey, we're doing this really well. It's successful, so let's make a full game based on this 4-player co-op experience. And I just don't think they did it right. I just think they thought, okay, we need that single-player narrative experience, and then they kind of tack that onto it when it kind of they should just double down on the multiplayer, right? Yeah. So for me, I think they need to go back to their grassroots and do what they love, because it didn't feel like the same level of love is being put into it post-release. So anyway, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I do think though one super quick thing to kind of go back to what you said, Destin, about like the model. Back in the day we used to have like House of Wolves and the kind of more sizable things. Like I do kind of, I know there's merits to both sides, but I do prefer that model because like I feel this it's interesting, like the way this whole games as a service thing has evolved. It gives people the ability to pick a game that they like and then essentially play it to no end. But I also feel for developers at the same time, because back in the day, you buy a game, you play it, and you're like, all right, I've got my 60 hours, and you put your game down, right? Now, like, there's this expectancy for so many games just to be like, I need to be able to play this game all the time. And it's like, sometimes, I mean, okay, the games that we play, and obviously relevant to loot drops, that you do want to be able to play these games all the time, and I completely get that. And as someone that loves MMOs, I get that as well. But I do feel like there are some times where I'm always perfectly happy. I would rather wait for a sizable DLC expansion that I know will be packed full of content than have the annual pass thing where it's like, we're going to trickle you some things that will, keep you busy for an hour this week and then come back next week. So yeah, I mean, I do kind of, I'm not sure that anyone has yet found the perfect model for it. I feel like there's merits to both sides. But I do feel like there should be like an appropriate cadence that people kind of expect, where it's like, okay, cool, content comes out, we play it for a bit, and this is the point where I should be taking a break from said game.
I have 544 hours on the PC version of Destiny 2 and 170 hours on the PS4 version. That's the version I played at launch because that was the only one available to us. Versus like 100 hours in Anthem, probably only like 30 hours in Division 2. So all these games are vying for your time, right? So to your point, yes, people want you to live in these worlds, and I think I'm going to sort of transition to Destiny here because we're coming up on the hour, but I think there was something to be said about the model that they had. Curse of Osiris, yes, it was probably one of the most poorly regarded DLCs in entire Destiny history. You got a planet that you couldn't ride around on with one lost sector. It was and an infinite forest that wasn't really infinite, it turns out.
Planet. It was an island.
Oh, an island. Yeah, right.
Tiny.
So like, they pulled the strikes out of the story, but those seem fixable to me. Those seem possible. Like, give us a few PvP, give us like 2-3 PvP maps, give us a strike or two that's not ripped out of the story, and give us a decent story to be told, and a raid. That's all we want. Just, those massive, huge things that take years to build. That's all that we're asking for. But yeah,
that's all.
And more recent. Coming up in Destiny 2 is Season of Opulence, and to sort of transition into the Destiny 2 nerfs, here's what Bungie had to say. Several weapons are getting nerfed. So for Season of Opulence, several notable weapons are being adjusted. We want to ensure that encounters, raids, and other game content, for example, remain a challenge. Some of these weapons have been overwhelming that challenge. Our first choice is the buff underused weapons, but if we continue to push every weapon up higher and higher, it will be impossible to maintain challenging experience. This is not a full list of changes, but some of the most impactful. And then at the end, they say, where is the sentence where they apologize for nerfing everything? We're sympathetic about the fact that the changes we make in the interest of balancing combat and game design can be jarring. It was important that we have this conversation before you read the patch notes. We know many of you have a lot riding on day one of Season of Opulence. Hopefully this intel will assist you in building the perfect monster killing machines for the next season of play. Now, to be devil's advocate, Datto did release a video kind of explaining power creep and how when you keep leveling everything up, that you kind of run into this wall where things just become too easy. I don't think that's the issue. I don't think the issue is power creep. I think that Whisper of the Worm did not need to have its infinite ammo taken away. I think you just needed fewer bullets, and it would have been totally fine. Give me 4 bullets, so I'm allowed to make one mistake, right? But don't take away the signature perk of this coveted weapon, because you're making the same mistake you made with Black Hammer. You introduced Black Hammer, and then it was too powerful, so you changed how it worked, and then you took it away, and then you brought it back in all of its glory. And the worst thing is that they had a Vidoc when Hamrick was still there, saying that like they're going to be okay with these power spikes and having stuff stand out. And instead of hammering them in like they used to, they're going to like bring everything else up. Turns out that's not the case at all, because they're also reworking Skull of Dire Hamkara, which was needed, Orpheus Rig, which I think isn't needed. But we need to see how impactful those end up being. But it's really, really unfortunate that to me that they did this, because I don't think the problem is Whisper. I think the problem has always been their design encounters. All the bosses have a freaking slam mechanic, to the point that this is a regular thread on Reddit. Come up with something else. It's slam mechanic. And instead of rising to that challenge and figuring out a way to make an interesting encounter, they're just like, we're just going to get rid of all the stuff that makes it too easy. And I think that sucks as a player. We're getting nerfed power-wise, and it just feels bad. And it really has. A lot of people have uninstalled Destiny. A lot of people are like, I'm not even going to play Season of Opulence. Like, this is stupid. And I said this on a few of my rants. I think this is being done because the raid is going to be blazed through if people use Whisper. Some people don't think it's as severe as I do. it was like a punch in the gut when we got the news. I'm still going to play Destiny, but man, it was a really, really rough day getting the news that all the favorite things that I've been having fun with are getting nerfed. So I don't even know where to go with this. Arekkz, how excited are you for Season of Opulence?
I mean, I'm probably not going to be jumping back in for a little bit until I know what they're doing next with Destiny. But I feel like, this has always been a problem with them, and I think there's two parts to it. I feel like on one end it's exacerbated because not only is the nerf like a lot of people hate that, but at the same time I feel like, especially in Destiny 2, some of the best items are old items from Destiny 1, right? Yeah. And I feel like if Destiny 2 had a huge range of guns that were all exciting, all powerful, and you were like, all right, I'm still going to go to Whisper because it's what I like, but okay, Whisper's gone, I've got a thing that's almost as good, right? But I feel like a lot of the time, all the new stuff is just not exciting. I remember when I was playing through Destiny 2 at launch, and I was like, everything that was new was just like, this is boring. And I look back to Destiny 1, and I think to myself, some of the exotics they had back then, like Icebreaker and Yellowhorn and Truth, and like basically all the exotics in Destiny 1.
All of them were cool.
Were so exciting, right? And like, and if something got nerfed, you're like, all right. Exactly, right? And if something got nerfed, you're like, all right, well, I'll go and find someone else. But in Destiny 2, it just feels like they're just super sparse, right? There's nothing super exciting. So when something you like gets nerfed and then everything else is just really boring, that's one thing. I do still feel like there's still a large portion of the player base that, no matter how long they've been with Destiny, no matter how long they've started playing looter shooters, if they haven't been grounded, and this doesn't I don't mean this in an elitist way, but if their gaming experience isn't grounded in like, I've played an MMO in the past, a lot of people still to this day don't accept this notion that an item you have might not always be of value, right? I when I played World of Warcraft and like Lich King expansion came out, I knew that all my stuff, all my raid gear, all my stuff I had before from Burning Crusade was in the bin. Like straight away, the very first thing I get from the crappy quest where I go and kill 10 boar in Lich King and I get given a free piece of gear, that's already better than my raid gear that I grinded for. And I'm like, you know what? I'm used to this, right? And I think there's a lot of players that if their first experience of this world, and I know this has been around for quite a while, but I think a lot of players still aren't used to this mindset that, oh, this gun that I really like, I can't hold on to it forever, right? But I feel like the way that you counter that is by making sure that when that stuff is dropped, there is exciting stuff. And that's the problem with Destiny. It's like, all right, we've nerfed your cool guns, but there isn't something cool for you to replace it with, and that's why people are angry.
Yeah. So the additional problem, I had another point I was going to make, but I'll talk about the exotics. A lot of the exotics suck. Extended bow hold time. Criticals load one shot into your holstered hand cannon. It's just like
that sucks.
Rally barricades recharge faster. It's just kind of like these are trash.
Anything with reload, anything with reload times or extended clips is just not fun for an end game item. Like, come on, yay, more ammo.
Faster.
Yeah.
Hey, min max.
But you can indefinitely hold bows. How about that?
Oh, I can't wait to walk around like this all the time through the raid. Yo, I'm eventually going to see something. Bam! I missed.
Aeon trios. It's just... and that's kind of become the meme, right? Oh, great. You're taking away all of our cool stuff. Think when Scourge of the Past raid came out. What is the exotic there? It is a gun you shoot 3 like electrical things and it electrocutes people. It's not really a viable weapon to use for anything. It's kind of fun to screw around with, but it's not coveted at all. And then 1,000 Voices, that one's pretty good. Like, I still don't have it, so I can't really speak to it too much. But what am I chasing? What am I chasing in Destiny? Yeah, great. Thank you, Arekkz. I'm glad you have it.
It's really good.
I've heard. Freaking 15 clears now. Still don't have one.
Hey, Arekkz, can you stand up a little bit so I can see your shirt? I'm just like, I want to know what it is.
Oh,
cool.
That's cool.
It's Monster Hunter.
Monster Hunter. Yeah. I thought something was up with that because it just looked like a flower bed. I'm like, there's no way he's got like a shirt. Just...
On the Destiny topic, I've talked about this extensively, and I would be curious to hear your thoughts, Dantics. What is your perception of Destiny as somebody that doesn't really actively play? Like, it's bad, right?
Yeah, look, I just didn't have fun when I jumped in and played it, and that was with a group of friends. So for me, the shooting felt really good. It felt like a more sci-fi kind of Halo, even though that doesn't make any sense. Does that make sense? It just
I kind of get what you mean.
Yeah. Anyway, the shooting was great. I did connect with some of the characters. I mean, I was following the storyline, but then I don't know, there was something that just didn't pull me back, and we kind of just faded away for me. Anyway, like you were saying, there wasn't anything particularly interesting with the guns, and when it's not like a Anthem that has all these cool skills, I didn't have any reason to keep shooting things, and you kind of want that.
Especially at launch. Like the exotics were underwhelming, the powers were fairly underwhelming. I mean, today, right now, for the next 2 weeks or so, things are pretty cool. I've actually been playing a lot to grind up for the raid, and I've been having a great time. So for me to like, I was like writing these positive Destiny features, and then like they just come out, and it's another punch in the gut. We're taking away all your toys. Who knows what you're going to get in Season Opulence, and it sucks as a player. And I think that's what the community is sort of trying to get out there. Maybe
I
don't even know what to ask you guys about this topic. I've expressed in several videos that I think it's bad.
Maybe it's development ignorance from my part, but I feel like you should be buffing things before you nerf them. If there's something particularly strong, then make everything else up to that level. Because nerfing always has this negative connotation. It's like, well, I spent all my time getting this item and I'm really enjoying it, but now you're taking that away from me. Whereas if everything else is going up, it might be like, hey, I've still got my cool item, but maybe I want to try this one now. Or maybe I want to try this one now. And I feel like that way of balancing is a little better. Like, I mean, they do that with other games. They do that with Dota and so forth.
Here's how they fix their game. Here's how all of them fix their game. Destiny, Anthem, and Division, right? You know, in light of here's my wacky plan. In light of the news this week that Microsoft and Sony are kicking off a partnership, right? Bungie, EA, and Ubisoft need to get together in a room and be like, you know what? All of our games are not good enough. Let's make a killer game together, right? Be like, take the gunplay from Destiny, take the breadth of content from Division, take some of the excitement from Anthem, put them all together in a Will It Blend blender, have them all work in parallel, and we will have the amazing God tier looter shooter. Imagine it would be like the Avengers,
and no one will be unhappy. And no one will be unhappy. Nothing will be wrong with it.
Nothing can go wrong. Yeah. Nothing
can go. I mean, they'll make bungo bucks from that. They'll make millions, and then everyone will be happy. They can retire, and then we'll have a service game.
The problem with that is there will be no other video games in existence because nothing will be able to compete.
That's
everyone
fine.
will just buy that game.
It'll be that game and then Nintendo.
Nintendo on the side.
Yeah, you only need the one. That'll be good. Anyway,
maybe that could be a topic for next week. Maybe we can theory craft the best looter shooter.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Next week, I will figure out if I'm able to do the show or not. I'm getting married on the 28th, so I have a lot.
You have to excuse him, guys.
Yeah, I apologize. I might be able to do the show, but if not, I have a pretty good excuse. But I'll follow up. If I can do it, great. If I can't, we will be back the following weekend. So, yeah, thank you for understanding. That's about all I had. Is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on before we head out?
Nothing from me. I think we covered kind of everything. I mean, we really talked a lot about nothing this week. So
I think Division was the big topic.
Yeah, Division was the big topic. Yeah,
for sure. Anyway, that's it for this week then, guys. For Dantics and Arekkz, that's it for this time, and we'll see you on the next episode of Loot Drops. Bye, everybody.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bloop.
Bye.